Kia ora koutou. Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. We're going to be discussing the PRINZ Awards, which are now open to enter. Unfortunately, Kate Woodruff is unwell today, so it's just me doing the webinar. So we'll start. So today, just in terms of what we are going to cover, we are going to look at the various categories, and then we're going to work through the different entry fields that are part of the online entry. We'll be covering the main categories as well as the additional categories: Sally Logan Milne, Young Practitioner, the PR Consultancy of the Year, as well as the in-house team of the year. We'll look at the judging process, a few final tips, summary of all the key dates and pricing, and some resources. Of course, if you've got questions, I'll respond to most of those at the end, but if you want to type them as we go through it, please just use the box on your right-hand side of the screen and type them in, and we'll get back to that at the end. We are also going to record this webinar, and Brianna will put this online in the next day or so. So, today's purpose is to share some general insights about how to approach your awards writing, but just to make sure we've kind of covered all the key points. I think, and Lisa Finucane, who was the chief judge before Kate, always talked about awards entry being a bit of an art and a science, and hopefully you'll see today, by working through the categories and looking at the points allocated and what's required, you'll understand what is required to kind of get most of the points, but you'll also be thinking about how to give your particular entry a sort of standout or wow factor. Okay, so that's me. Unfortunately, it's not Kate, our chief judge, but she will be coordinating the awards judges for this year. So, onto the categories. So as you'll see, there's these categories. These are in the main ones. Choose your category carefully. I think in the past, people have tried to be quite clever about it, and they're thinking, oh, how many entries, I'm more likely to win if I enter my campaign or project into this category, because then there are likely to be fewer entries in this category. Don't try and overthink it. Actually look at the categories, and there's more detail about these online, but decide which category is the best fit. Don't try and put it into a different one, because if judges feel that they well, judges will decide if it's not the right category and then move it to another category. So pick the one that is the best fit. If you've got any questions about that, please feel free to ring the office if you would like to talk through that. Sometimes there might be two categories that your entry could be entered into. Okay, so these, for all the main categories, with the exception of the Sally Logan Milne, Paul Dryden, PR Consultancy of the Year, and In-House Team of the Year, the award entry fields are the same for each of the main categories, and these are all online. So I suggest when you go to the website, you can download a draft entry form, and you can plan your entry as a Word document, and then once you log in to the awards application, you can then copy and paste your information into each of these entries. And we'll now go through each of these fields in more detail, but it's worth looking at this and looking at the number of marks allocated for each entry field. Okay, so the first entry field, heading and synopsis. Okay, so there's 0 marks for this, but it's still really important A good headline creates interest, it grabs the judge's attention, and it's like a media release in terms of it hooks us in. Create a compelling synopsis. Your synopsis should be 100 words or less. Try and stick to the limit here. This is the first thing that the judges read. And it's also important because if you're a finalist, this is the synopsis that will be used to describe your entry on the website, on the slides at the awards event, and in any other promotional material. So please make sure that it is concise, that it's cohesive, it actually makes sense, and it's not filled with typos. Moving on to the background. So what the judges want to see, they want to have a brief explanation of what the project, campaign, or issue is. Be very clear about what you did, what made it relevant, and why it was worth doing. And importantly here in this background, don't leave it for the judges to guess or make assumptions, because the judges must only be guided by what they read in the entry. They can't make assumptions. Please don't include a lot of irrelevant detail. There should be no kind of tactical detail about the information in this. This is just simply why the project came into being. It's only worth 5 points, so tailor the amount of content in here accordingly. Okay, preliminary research. And I think this is probably a component of the entry that a lot of PR people stress about. Research does not have to be formal research. If you have that, great, but you're not marked down if you haven't commissioned a research company to do research for you. It can be informal. It may include things like desk research, insights gained from your own experience, information gleaned from client or company briefings. In fact, there might be research available from elsewhere in your organisation, or your client may have commissioned other research that is relevant. It can be quantitative data, qualitative data, might be focus group findings, anecdotal evidence, and within this, include assumptions you have made and why. So list the research that you did, the what, and the insights that you sought to gain from this. So the why. For example, we reviewed media coverage of the issue to date. This gave us an understanding of the key issues, organisations, and individuals involved. So this is worth 10 points. So it's quite important. Objectives. Okay, so this is one of the most important sections to get right. The judges look for a clear line from your organisational objectives through to the communication objectives. And then this will lead into the strategy and the tactics and the results. The results must clearly align with the objectives set out in this section. Please include what the business or organisation objectives are, as well as the PR and communications objectives. And these PR and communications objectives should clearly support the business objectives. Delineate between what the organisation is trying to achieve and what the communication aims are trying to achieve. For example, an organisational objective may be to increase this year's campaign donations by 50%. The campaign supporting PR objectives might be something like achieve a 20% increase in awareness about how to become a volunteer collector and achieve a 50% increase in awareness about the upcoming donation campaign. It's important that your objectives are SMART. So SMART objectives are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. The judges do not want to see tactical detail in this. This is not about what you will do, but about the measurable outcome that you hope to achieve. The audience field. So the judges are looking for an analysis of the audience. Simply listing the audiences won't get you maximum points here, and this is worth 10 points. There's limited space here, but you can still summarize each of your audiences succinctly. This might be demographics, demographics and psychographics. Keep in mind that the New Zealand public is not a suitable description. You know, are you really going to reach all of New Zealand? Is all of New Zealand really interested? Does all of New Zealand need to get interested for you to succeed? So you need, if you mention an audience type in this field, then be sure that your discussion of the implementation clearly takes this audience into account, even if it's simply to refer to all stakeholders. Ditto, if an audience is mentioned in the implementation, then be sure to make sure it's also listed in this audience entry field. Key messages. Have a maximum of 4 to 6 key messages. The judges are going to be looking at how clearly does the entry articulate the messages that are central to the project or campaign. How relevant are these to the objectives and the audiences that you previously described? They're looking for clear alignment between these entry fields, between the whole entry needs to be consistent between objectives, audiences, strategy, and tactics. Make sure that you logically think about the content that sits in each category. A strapline or tactical detail is not appropriate to include as a key message. Okay, so strategy and implementation. And people often confuse objectives, strategy, and tactics. The objectives, these relate to the end or purpose. Why are we doing this, and what are we wanting to ultimately achieve? The strategy, this is the plan for achieving the objectives. And then the tactics are the nitty-gritty detail and the actions of what you will take to achieve the strategy. So again, the judges are looking for a clear cascade from objectives to strategies, tactics, and then subsequently the results. In this implementation section, make sure to include the campaign's budget in this. If it's a campaign or project that has zero budget, you need to think about time, and often this can be tricky for in-house practitioners who might not be required to keep timesheets. Just acknowledge this in your entry and do the best you can to articulate the time you think it's taken. Provide detail of anything that was provided, like products or services that were provided for in kind, their value, and what any hard costs might be. Maybe those costs may have been covered from another budget by another organisation, or particularly in the instance if you are working, if there are multiple agencies working on a campaign, maybe some of those costs have been borne by one of the other agencies. So just detail the budget that has been spent, and also perhaps if you're not sure, outline what it was, but acknowledge that that came from a separate budget. Okay, this is, I guess, part of the wow factor, creativity or problem solving. So, as you can imagine, in each of the categories, there's usually a wide range of organisations entering. Some are very small, discrete campaigns, others might be quite large and big budget. The judges take all of this into account and they decide and base their judging on which entry has achieved the greatest results based on the resource, that's time, money, that they have had. So for example, they're not going to be giving a large organisation with huge resources extra points compared to a small organisation if the large organisation has not demonstrated that it has a wow factor or done something. The judges base it on the creativity, on the problem solving, on the complexity, and the level of challenge in each entry. So this is worth 10 marks. So this is really worthwhile highlighting what made your project or campaign really special, what made it stand out from all the other work that you worked on this year. You know, if it was a really, really complex project, explain why it was complex. Explain what the limitations were. Maybe explain how you turned something around. You know, the winners are not based on budget, but everything is taken into account in terms of the context. So yeah, this is your opportunity to include the wow factor. And this is probably the biggest difference between the highly commended and the winning entries. Again, it's worth 10 marks. Results, evaluation, and follow-up. This is a big section. It's worth 25 marks, so almost a third of all points. The results should cover the extent to which the campaign achieved its objectives and desired outcomes. So again, remember what your initial objectives were. The results should link back directly to the objectives. For example, we achieved a 60% increase in donations, overachieving our objective by 10%. This was due to blah, 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 blah. When initially setting deliverables, make sure that you can actually measure them in some way. Don't just refer to improving the company's reputation without also defining how you are tracking that. They want to see a link between these results and the overall objectives. And it's actually quite surprising how many entries don't do this. This is where people let themselves down. So ensure that you're linking back. If your project exceeds expectations, then say so. And I think the evaluation and the follow-up, this is your opportunity to reflect on the work that you've done. Talk about the success of it. Highlight what this has meant. If you've got client or customer or internal stakeholder feedback, this is where you might want to include that. If there's other projects or a phase 2 that have come from this, say so. If something hasn't worked, say so and explain why, because sometimes understanding what's not successful is equally as important as explaining what worked and why. Maybe if there's a phase 2, this is an opportunity to reflect on what you might do differently or what you learned from this project and what you'll be doing differently next time based on that. If there's no further action planned, say why. and talk about maybe the wider implications that resulted from your work. So if your project or campaign had a significant impact on your organisation as a whole or on your client, and they've perhaps changed the way they might do something, actually say so. Really highlight the difference that this work has made for your organisation and your client. This final field, acknowledgement of other disciplines, isn't worth any marks, but it's really important to acknowledge the other disciplines involved. It might include advertising agencies, other sponsorships, some direct marketing, digital work. It might include other departments in your organisation. I think it's important to remember that the judges don't have the background that you have. They will assume that maybe someone else, unless you specify the creative work was ours, but the creative idea was ours, and then we passed it on to a marketing company to do this component, they will not know who has done what work. And if they're unsure, they can't say, oh, well, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and they probably did all this work. They need to know what you were responsible for and what support you had from other organisations and or departments within your organisation. And this information helps the judges to fully understand the role that PR has played in the planning and implementation amongst the other disciplines. It highlights, and maybe this is part of your complexity, maybe there were, you know, 7 different agencies working on this campaign. Maybe that's what made it really complex, or, you know, they want to know who else worked on this and what role did they play in its success. This is also the area where you can acknowledge non-PRINZ members who worked on the entry. Only current PRINZ members will be named on the certificates and on any media releases and things that go out. So if there are others in your organisation who are not PRINZ members, this is where you would put their name, and they won't formally be recognised at the awards on this. I think, and also just keep in mind, I mean, the judges are aware that most organisations have quite limited resources. They expect to see this. So I think it's really important to think about, and you need to think about the balance of the other organisations, particularly if you're thinking about entering the MarComs integrated category. So that would be a category that you would enter if there are a lot of other organisations who have significantly contributed and worked well to a particular campaign or project. It is more likely that you would then enter your work in that category. But if, you know, the role of others is small, then enter it in another category, but acknowledge them in this. Okay, so this year, for the first time, we have a prize for excellence in research, measurement and evaluation. So I think you'll see by the introduction of this prize, we're really trying to emphasise the importance of starting with good research and then afterwards measuring and evaluating the work that you have done. The prize will be judged by representatives from our PRINZ awards judges, also from Icentia and Research First. So please, when you're entering, you'll notice there's a box. Please opt out if you do not wish to be considered for the prize. Otherwise, all finalists will be eligible for this prize. And The winner will get complimentary attendance on PRINZ short courses for up to 5 PRINZ members who are named on the PRINZ Award entry. Okay, so we're going to cover off the Sally Logan Milne Young Practitioner Award now. The details fairly straightforward and covered off in the slides. So this award is open to those aged 30 or younger as of Monday the 2nd of March. It's a 1,200 word essay plus 2 written references, and the references can come from inside or outside your organisation. So they might be clients, they might be your manager, they might be a previous employer. And the prize is a $500 prize from the Sally Logan Milne bequest. So within this, you need to tell the story of your PR career. You'll see here, how have you used PR to contribute to better outcomes for your organisation, what you've learned, what you've achieved, challenges, and your philosophy as a practitioner. The judges want to see that you can think critically about your projects, your practice, and the PR profession as a whole, that you are learning and continuing to develop as a practitioner, that you can communicate effectively and persuasively, PR Consultancy of the Year. So this category is split into 2 subcategories. The small to medium sized consultancy, so up to 7 staff, and the medium to large, so this is agencies with more than 7 staff. Again, if the agency has more than 1 office, the entry can be for the group operation, and so that's obviously based in New Zealand. If it's an agency that has offices based overseas, there's an opportunity to acknowledge that within it, but the entry is submitted for the New Zealand operation. The award recognises professionalism, agency culture, success, as well as impact and innovation. And it's probably worth highlighting that the judge, there will be different things that the judges look for, and the reason why one consultancy may win one year may be very, very different for why a consultancy might win in another year. They take everything into account. The judges for this category are carefully considered. Obviously, New Zealand is a small place, and we want to ensure that there are no potential conflicts of interest. The judges have worked and are experienced in an agency environment, but no longer work in the agency environment, and one of the judges is based overseas. So in terms of the entry details, we want to know about your consultancy, so agency name, the head count, number of staff, that's full-time equivalents, location, and then tell the story of your firm. Describe the consultancy's abilities, practice areas, values, and what makes the consultancy distinctive and stand out. We also need to supply 3 case studies. Each of the case studies is around 500 words, and these case studies should be from the 2019 calendar year, unless of course a case study might be what we'd consider to be sustained work. So if it's a particular case study that's run over a period of, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, maybe more, maybe you want to use that as a case study, but some of the work must have been done in 2019. Explain how, within these case studies, explain how the consultancy has helped the client during the year and what challenges has the consultancy faced and overcome. We want to know about the commercial success. So that will be client wins, client retention, revenue, growth projections. These entries are confidential and you can provide percentages rather than raw figures if you like, but we also need a letter from a financial director or equivalent, such as an accountant, to confirm that these are accurate, and the judges do sign an NDA prior to judging. As I said before, the judges may award Consultancy of the Year to consultancies for very different reasons. It might be around client successes, it might be around some specific innovation that the consultancy has done, or contribution to the PR industry overall, or some sort of highlight with regard to what they've done with staff development, retention, growth. They want to see clear evidence of strategic thinking, ability to deliver against briefs, and evidence of success. The PR in-house team of the year is probably an equivalent to the PR consultancy of the year category. So again, it recognises professionalism, organisation, and team culture. So again, there's a big focus on talent retention, staff development, but the judges will really be looking at the contribution that the team has made to the organisation's overall success. And so this is a really good category to enter if you want to highlight the value that the PR team has delivered to the overall organisation's success. Again, on the entry form, we want to know about your organisation, name of the organisation, what the organisation does, perhaps an organisational chart of the PR team, detailing the roles and practice areas, reporting lines, support from offshore offices or PR consultancies, if that's relevant, and where the region of activity occurs. We want to detail the team's values and explain what makes the team stand out. And again, this is one where you supply 3 case studies. Each case study is a maximum of 500 words. So this is where you highlight the projects that you have worked on internally and how they have contributed to achieving the organisational goals. So again, think about what has made your team stand out. Maybe, again, it's a very, very complex environment. Maybe there's been massive organisation or market changes. Think about what your team's vision for the future is. How have you done something different? How have you innovated? Okay, so for all of the categories, the main categories and the special categories, the judges are allocated from PRINZ fellows and life members, with sometimes a few of the PRINZ members with APR supporting those. Judges are allocated after entries have closed, and the panels usually comprise of at least 3 judges. They review all the entries. If there is the judges are provided with a short list of the names of the entrants and the award name, and if there is a conflict of interest, we find another judge for that category, or in the instance where there may be more than 3 judges, there's a conflict of interest, the judge with a conflict of interest simply will not be sent that entry to judge. The panels of judges for each category select not a finalist, highly commended, and winners. So the winners and highly commended are announced as finalists, and they'll be announced early May. Finalists are not announced for PR Consultancy of the Year, in-house team, and only finalists in the main categories will be judged for the measurement prize. The final results will be revealed on Thursday, the 11th of June. The awards gala dinner will be held in Auckland this year at Hopetown Alpha. This year, when you enter, there will be a box asking you if you would like to receive feedback. So the judges, when they judge, they write comments. And I know it sounds a little bit silly, but this is a change. In the past, we have previously provided feedback on all entries, which is something that many other awards don't do. And a lot of entrants find it extremely valuable. However, we've also found that a lot of entrants are not open to receiving the feedback. And so we've said it's an opt-in. If you would like to receive feedback, tick this box. If you'd like to talk to me more about that, feel free to ring me. So key dates and pricing. As you know, entries are open now. Entries will close at 5 p.m. on Monday, the 2nd of March. And your entry will cost $295. However, if you would like an extended deadline, and this is Wednesday, the 4th of March at 5 p.m., it'll cost you an extra $100 and the entry fee is $395. For the not-for-profit category in the Sally Logan Milne Young Practitioner of the Year categories, the entries are $245. I suggest that you don't wait until 5 o'clock to enter your information on the website. It does take a little longer than you anticipate to cut and paste. Sometimes people realise that they have forgotten their passwords, they're having trouble logging in, their internet connection dies, all sorts of things. So I advise you not to leave it till the last minute before entering. Please make sure that you have checked with your organisation, with your client, that the information that you are including has been signed off by the appropriate people. Okay, so some final tips. Stand out for all the right reasons. So keep in mind that judges may be reading and reviewing quite a few entries. So make sure it's easy to read. Make sure it's not filled with typos. Make sure it makes cohesive sense. Make it easy for the judges. You might think that your campaign or project is really well known. The judges can only mark according to the information that you have provided to them. When you're entering, think about getting someone who hasn't been involved with the project to review your entry before you submit it. Often you are so close to it that you assume a lot of knowledge. In the past, we have had to call people and ask them, who is the client you are referring to? Because there are several. And it's not clear, but clearly the person who has written the entry is so close to the project that they think it's obvious. Make sure that you cover it all. Make sure that you are exciting the judges. Make sure, I mean, you want to convey that this is amazing work and you want them to be impressed. Check for repetition. Make sure that you have entered the relevant information in the appropriate fields, that there's that cohesive link between objectives, strategy, and tactics. Don't repeat tactics within strategy. Make it cascade. Don't use jargon. Not everybody works in your industry. Not everybody knows what a particular acronym may mean. The word count is 2,500. So this comprises 100 word synopsis, 2,100 words in the entry, and 300 words in the acknowledgement of other disciplines. Use these points allocation as a guidance for the word counts in each section, with more information being included in the higher marks value sections. The entry period for the work is 1st of January 2019 to 29th of February 2020. The sustained category is the exception if your project doesn't fit within the calendar year. Please call and discuss if you've got any issues. I mean, sometimes the work, if the work's been commissioned in December 2018, it's still relevant. It just means the vast majority of the project or work should be done within last year, the 2019 calendar year. And you might have wrap up. There still might be some wrap up to go. So think about whether you want to enter the work this year or you're better off waiting till next year. Yeah. Make sure your entry is clear, compelling, concise, cohesive, and compliant. Read the terms and conditions of entry. Think about deciding whether your entry is confidential versus non-confidential. So you will have the option to tick a box when you put your entry in. Entries that aren't confidential go into the PRINZ Awards case study booklet. That's the finalists. Sometimes you may wish to include, your entry may be not confidential, but there might be some financial or budget information that you would prefer to keep confidential. Please highlight this within your entry. Resources. Our other PRINZ members, so other entrants, winners from the past, feel free to talk to them. They're part of your community. Look at the resources online on our website. They're the case study booklets from the 1990s onwards. There are FAQs, judging criteria, terms and conditions to read on the website. There's this presentation, previous ones, and otherwise you can call the office if you have any specific questions. All right, over to you. Any questions from anyone?
So there has been a few questions come in prior to the webinar. So I think you've answered this one, but just to clarify, so for the PR in-house Team of the Year award, is the team outline in addition to the case studies?
Yes, so the team outline is worth, I think it's 500 words. Feel free to put, I think within that there might be organisational charts and things. That's where that goes, and then each of the case studies is up to 500 words each.
Yeah. And do all of the case studies have to be from 2019?
Ideally, yes, but again, treat it like perhaps a sustained category. If there's a project or campaign that you've been running internally that might date back prior to that time, but is also part of the work that you've done in 2019, then yes, you could include that as well.
And how important are images and videos in your entry?
I think images and videos should be seen as supporting material. Everything you need to include in your entry should have been covered within the written entry. You might wish to include, if you're talking about results, there might be bullet points of results. You don't need to include a huge amount of supporting material unless you think that it really will make a difference to the entry. If it a picture tells 1,000 words, if it's going to make a tangible difference to how the judges perceive that. But I think you should cover everything off in the written entry.
And I would also add to that there are limits to how many photos and videos that you can put in your entry. And there is also a limit to how long each video can be. So that can be found on the main awards page.
Judges are going to make their decisions on what a particular project or campaign has achieved within its context. So if, there might be a very fancy video, but another organisation may not have had the resource to create a video, it does not put you out of the running. If you haven't created an amazing video, that the video, unless the video is kind of key to your project, it simply should be seen as supporting material.
All right, any other questions? So if you do have a question, just pop it in the question box on the right-hand side. Give it a few seconds. If you do think of anything after the webinar, feel free to either call the office or send the office an email or send Elaine an email. And we can answer that for you. And I will include those details when I send the recording out later on today. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions.
Great, thank you everyone for joining and all the best with your entries. We look forward to receiving them. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.